Who am I? Well, that's a really good question. um, as I'm still constantly trying to figure that out. I guess I will tell you what I know so far. I am Jacen. I'm 24. Right now, I'm in the backyard of where I live with some of my family. I don't have a great relationship with most of my family for some reasons that I control and for other reasons that are completely out of my control. I have been sober, however, in the program I practice, we say clean, for 2.5 years. That's not an exact amount, it's somewhere around there though. I work in foster care. I work at a foster home, which is it's really a group home. I used to work at a treatment center in it was like a wilderness treatment center with kids who had committed criminal offenses. There was a group of kids there who committed sexual offenses as well. I quit that job because I needed a break. I got really burnt out. I had to live in the woods for 3 days and then I'd be home for 3 days. So I just wanted to sleep in my own bed at night. That's really all I wanted. And I got that, but I worked at some warehouse jobs that I could not stand and eventually found my way back into working with youth again. Mostly because I relate to those kids a lot. The kids who are in that kind of system's lives are very similar to mine. I share a lot of similar experiences and stories with them. I feel as though it is almost in a way my responsibility to give them what I never had and what I used to have some pretty strong resentments about not getting when I was a kid. I hate taking videos of myself, if you can't tell, but I'm trying to pretend that I'm just talking to one of my friends right now. Of which I actually have a lot of friends right now, and that's not something I would have been able to say for most of my life. I have made some pretty serious mistakes for a lot of the time I've been alive. I've done some pretty messed up things. However, I do believe that I've done the best that I could every day with the tools that I've had, and I put a lot of effort into never repeating those mistakes again and trying to make a living amends. I do owe some amends to a lot of people for the things I've done, and I do feel as though a lot of people owe me some amends that I will never receive. I lived up north for most of my life, and then I moved to the south a couple of years ago, and that was a huge culture shock for me. And I also was in active addiction at the time, so I didn't really surround myself with a lot of very positive people. So, it, yeah, I moved around a lot as a kid. I went to a handful of different schools. I lived in a bunch of different houses. I've been in the mental health care system and the system in general since I was about 15 or 16. The first time I went into the system I was admitted into a mental hospital, and that was the first time I learned that my childhood experience was not normal. I feel as though I kind of always knew that, regardless, somewhere in my own head or in my own heart. I knew that what was going on was not normal, but I could not prove it. And I ended up being in the mental health system for a couple of years. I went to an alternative school for half of my junior year, and also towards and also during that summer. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17, in with some other family members, my grandparents, and I went to college when I was 18, and I went to college for psychology because I wanted to learn more about myself, and also because I wanted to be able to do whatever I wanted and have nobody tell me anything. I wanted to be smart enough to the point where I could prove everyone wrong and I could justify everything that I was doing, because I got really sick of people telling me that everything was my fault and I was stupid and I was never going to be anything and I was going to be stuck this way forever, and I wanted to prove them wrong. However, I did spend a lot of those years still trapped in my own toxic mindset and negative behaviors. And it wasn't until I dropped out of college and I had to move in with my grandparents under the threat of homelessness that I was able to change that, or find a willingness to change, because I couldn't change on my own. I had to have help. However, that help did not come from a therapist or the system at all. I found that help through other people who told me that the problem was me, and that also meant that I was the solution, and that I didn't have to live this way forever, which was a totally different perspective and message than I had ever received in my entire life. I was basically told that I was defined by my mental illnesses, I was never going to get better, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was going to have to be on medications my whole life. Basically, that I was just stuck, that there was no way out, nothing I could do to become better. I became terrified that I was going to end up on a disability check for the rest of my life, that I was never going to make anything of myself, that my PTSD and my other various mental illnesses I got diagnosed with were going to hold me down and define me for the rest of my life, and I was never going to find a healthy way to cope with these things so that I could accomplish and move on and be a full human person and get to experience life to the fullest ability that I could, and to just be myself and like being myself, because I was trying to be whoever anybody else wanted me to be instead of just being who I am, because I didn't know who I was, and in the little parts of myself that I did know, I wasn't interested in embracing, because I was constantly told that who I am was wrong and made me a bad person and were the reason that I was stuck like this. It wasn't until I was willing and able to do the work on myself that I could finally reach a level of self-acceptance and get past that mindset. I'm still pretty stubborn, and that process was a bit more difficult for me than it is for some other people. However, I also admire that quality about myself, because it leads me to look for better, not necessarily better, because nothing is better or worse than something else, but paths that are made for me so that I can reach these goals that I've always wanted to accomplish in my life. Actually, before I started getting really bad into active addiction, I tried to make online content and YouTube videos when I was 15. I had my first job when I was 14 years old. I saved up a lot of money from the jobs that I had to buy a PC so I could record videos and edit them and post them on YouTube. I made maybe 5 or 6 videos. They were really low quality, but I really tried my best. And I eventually just kind of gave into the idea that I was never going to be able to be successful at those things, and that I should just be stuck in a 9-to-5 job and then go to college. And I've always wanted to help people but the very well-meaning individuals in my life who were not abusive wanted to see me succeed in the typical way that is acceptable by society. So they wanted me to go to college and to get a degree and to join a good company and to make a lot of money that way and help people through therapy, which I don't have a great relationship with, and I would like to find other avenues to accomplish that goal where I can be myself and where I can feel more fulfilled and give back what I have in my own way and help people feel like they can be who they are and let go of the expectations that society places on us by trying to diagnose us with things and tell us that that makes up the kind of person that we are, and there's no way to change that, because I just completely disagree with that. I have very little of the symptoms that I had from the diagnoses I was given when I was younger, that many therapists told me I was going to have to spend the rest of my life dealing with, and I was never going to be able to find a cure for them. I was diagnosed with things that were uncurable. I was going to have to be on a cocktail of medications for my whole life. I take a singular medication today. I take the lowest dose of it, and it took me years to be comfortable with accepting even that. A lot of that mindset that I was going to be stuck on medications led me into a long period of active addiction, because I kind of just figured, well, if I'm going to be on medications my whole life, I might as well have fun with it, I hope that I'm able to not overcome, because nothing in life needs to be overcome. It needs to be embraced and accepted. But I hope that I'm able to embrace my self-esteem and self-confidence issues and incorporate them into my shadow self while moving into my higher self, so that I can send the message that I want to send and be the person that I want to be through making online content, because there are still some learned, inherited beliefs in my thought system that tell me that doing this is stupid and not worth it, and people are just going to laugh at me and not accept me for who I am. But the cool thing about that is that other people's opinions of me are none of my business. And I only want to reach the people who I can help anyway. So if somebody feels the need to have that kind of reaction to the things that I'm doing, I appreciate that, and that's a good thing, because that means that I know exactly who doesn't belong in the community that I would like to create for myself. I actually had a lot easier time making this video than I expected. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and that I can continue to share and create content with anyone who's interested in viewing it. I have a lot of thoughts in my head and a lot of things to say. I would like to say them to anyone who's willing to hear it. Have a great day. It was nice meeting you. I hope that I will continue to be able to introduce myself to you at each phase of my growth as I continue to learn more about who I am. Bye.